How's your week been? What have you been up to? Have you got any good things and words of wisdom you can share with us? What have you been up to?
Got a few offers accepted on Friday, so I do my usual the kind of discussions we were having the other day about whether you raise the funding first or do you find the deals first, and I usually find the deals first. So yeah, I found a few on Friday that got accepted, so it's time to start looking for funding or looking for extra funding.
Nice. Is that in your stomping ground of Aberdeen?
Aberdeen, yeah.
Good. And are they single unit buy to lets or?
Yeah, three single units. One I want to do is a flip. Want to try a flip in Aberdeen, but then the numbers make sense that you can do a high-end flip, and if it works, and it sells. If it doesn't, you can easily refinance and get all the money back out anyway, and put some back let until the market.
And did you do the viewings? Did you physically attend the viewings, or was it like virtual viewing type things?
No, I didn't. I viewed these probably about 5 months ago originally,
right?
And I went back up last Friday with the owner. So these are empty. They're actually already ripped out. It's a guy I developed a big kind of service accommodation provider in Aberdeen. I think they had about 169 units of service accommodation in Aberdeen at one point, and
right, okay,
kind of converted back to standard buy-to-lets, and a couple of the ones that were required renovation, they're just looking to offload them. So yeah, I managed to get a wee deal on.
That's cool. Did you previously offer and then it got rejected, and did you have to come back and revisit it, or?
Yeah.
So here's a value tip straight away, guys. Right, this is the power of follow-up, because quite often we'll go in low, we'll get rejected, and then you might just walk away and think, oh, that's not going to happen, but you need to keep following up. We've talked about this in the past, haven't we?
I got another one accepted, or I know where the offer's getting accepted at, and I think I spoke about you at the start of this lockdown. I had an offer accepted, and I was kind of cautious that they pushed me up because of the condition of the market pre-lockdown, post-lockdown, pre-lockdown, and they pushed me up a fair bit. The numbers still worked, and during this, I was kind of anticipating, like, well, what do I do? Do I go back and be cheeky and try and get some below it? So I ended up pulling out the deal. They said they weren't going to change their position. They weren't going to reduce the offer, and they felt that nothing had changed in the market. And I said, well, I'll tell you what, you've got 4 weeks to come back to me, and my offer's getting withdrawn or it's getting reduced again. And they came back after 2 days, and they said the lowest will go is, I think it was 6 or 7 grand less than what they were accepting. But it's a repossession, so it was a bank, and they just says that's the lowest we're going, that's where it's at. So they came back pretty quickly, which was quite interesting. But obviously, people being a repossession, they've got a debt to service on it, so they went to their lowest. So it was another.
That's good. I think that obviously coming out of this lockdown, in 2 or 3 months from now, there's going to be more and more deals, more and more opportunities, and people should be, not scared to put in low offers. I know we had Barry Walker, estate agent, on a couple of weeks ago, and he was like, how should we get on side with estate agents and, build relationships up with estate agents? And he was like, well, don't come in with crazy low offers. But to be honest with you, I kind of disagree. As long as you justify why you're coming in, you've got to kind of justify, you're not just coming in there just low bound for nothing. You're coming in there saying, look, this is what I do. This is what I think I need to spend on it. It needs a bit of work. That's just the line I use, This is how much.
And that was the one that I'm kind of probably going to go back to tomorrow with is we got accepted, and I was going to joint venture in my mastermind group because there was guys that were wanting to really learn how to do renovations and really get comfortable with the process, and the numbers were big enough to kind of split it between about a group of 2 or 3 years and get the rest of the guys involved. And it was on at offers over 135. I went in at 112.5 originally. We end up selling at 127.5, which is a fair bit off. Like, they got their way, they managed to just keep pushing me up. And obviously, when with the anticipation of a market change, I went back and says, no, I'm going back to my original offer because I think this is going to affect the end values of the final product of X, Y, and Z, and that's going to reflect in my offer being reinstated at the original offer. And then they came back and was like, no, we're not taking less than the 127. And like I said to them, put it back on the market then and see where you go. And they did come back a couple of days later and say, like, okay, the lowest we can go is 121. So
nice. Well, there you go. Action. There's an action taker right there. And I've certainly not been. I've been browsing. I've been on the Right Move app, and I've been having a wee look. I'm starting to kind of get back into it again.
You finding more coming on the market?
There's not much, mate. There's a couple of things. There was one good kind of 3 beds that needed a full refurb. but I contacted the agent. They came back to me straight away and said, look, they've already rejected offers, on the home report value. So, probably no chance of that. So just, again, I'll need to follow up because, again, it's all well and good. There was somebody asking on the forum what the kind of conversion rate is of, offers to actually getting offers accepted. And it just really depends on the scenario. So that one that I phoned up about that needed a complete refurb, and the agent said, well, they're not looking to accept anything less than home report value. They've actually already knocked back home report value. Well, that's fine, but do you know what I mean? It might not sell at that. So you need to revisit that a couple of weeks down the line and see if the situation's changed. Do you know what I mean?
Of course, yeah.
So it's about being patient as well.
Yeah. Be keen to get if anybody else has got any offers accepted in this week or so as well. I think there's a bit of movement going on. I spoke to a couple of agents end of last week, and they were saying they've got a backlog of properties going on the market as soon as the 18th turn. So, I think like we kind of anticipated, there's going to be a lot going on. There's going to be a lot of investors looking for them as well.
Hey, what about our Caroline Clayton interview? That went down well, didn't it? So
yeah, that was fun. We both enjoyed that one, didn't we?
That one went out on Friday, guys. It's Caroline Clayton. She's actually based down in England, but she's Scottish originally. Well, she is Scottish, but she moved down to England. Very, very interesting. If you haven't checked that one out, go and check it out because she actually talks about, how she would never do another joint venture partnership ever again after
I found it very interesting because at the start of the interview it was, nope, I don't do a joint venture. I just take money. That's my rules and that's it. And it was like complete dead against joint ventures. And then in the interview, I think you'd asked, she says, so have you ever done a joint venture or something? And then the truth kind of came out and she'd been stung right at the start. She'd done her first joint venture and lost £40,000. And she kind of went into the story, which I thought was really, really good to be open and honest with that because there was obviously a pain point when she says she didn't do joint ventures.
I found her she was very honest. She gave a good interview and, we need to try and get more people on like that as well. We enjoy like introducing you guys to these people as well who have done quite a bit in property, and it's good to learn. We can learn from their mistakes basically. So it's good.
Speaking of kind of which, we've got David Meek, who's kindly posted in the Facebook group page. I think last week on a project he'd carried out, a conversion old building. You checked that one out. So we asked David if he could share, the numbers and the story behind the kind of project, because there's always a story on how it was purchased and how it was funded and how it was structured and any issues that was found throughout the development. So I see that these came on, thankfully.
Actually, somebody's just informed me that Caroline lives in Edinburgh, so sorry about that, Caroline. I thought she was in England now because she said she had to get, at one point in the interview, she said she had to get out of Scotland. I presume that was just her investment
area, yeah.
Right, okay.
She lives in Edinburgh, yeah. I think she said her husband was from London and she had to get out of our portfolio was very much heavily Scottish based. So
yeah, but she's doing big things down in England anyway, so that's interesting. Right, okay, let's move on to the topic then. I think we'll get into this week's topic, which is I want to pick up on this fair rents bill, Stephen. It's probably something that I'll just kind of rattle on about for a wee bit. And if you've got any questions, just jump in. Fair rents bill, which is basically been introduced to the Scottish Parliament. Now, this is only in Scotland, guys, so if you're in England, this doesn't apply. What this is basically this could be a law, so it's got to go through Parliament still, right? And it's just been introduced as a bill. And it's basically saying, I'm not the best at explaining things, but I'll try my best. It's basically saying that a landlord, there's going to be rent caps on the levels that landlords can increase rent. And what they're saying is that it's going to be consumer price index, which is basically inflation plus 1%. And you can only do that one time over the course, over 12, no, you can only do it one time over 12 months, I'm pretty sure. I think I've got that right. Actually, I was going to pull up the document that I got sent through from Sal, which will highlight the bullet points. So if you just bear with me. By the way, guys, if you've got any questions on this, this is fair rents. If you're a landlord, private landlord, and you self-manage, or even if you've got an agent and you're wanting to ask questions about these rent caps, then please jump in.
There's a couple of agents on that might be able to chip in as well and give their
Yeah, we'll get Chris in as
Craig
well.
on as well.
So actually, just while I find this, Chris, you want to jump on? Have you been reading up on this fair rent spill?
This is actually something my business partner's been looking into and was going
I
to.
knew you were going to say that.
I've been working. I've been
Right.
working on running around doing videos. So
Right, well, wait a minute, guys, because I'm going to share.
Let me ask Craig Holmes if he'll know about this. I'm confident. How you doing? How you doing, mate?
I'm good. I'm a bit red. I'm just off the golf course. It's a hard life.
Oh, I struggle
yeah,
with
so
you.
I know. So this fair rent bill that's coming in. So as Nick said, it's been presented to Parliament. The likelihood of it getting passed in terms of timescales will not be before May 2021, and that's at the earliest. And obviously with COVID and everything that's in lockdown, it's probably going to be later than that. So essentially, as Nick said, can't be higher rent increase than CPI plus 1% over a 12-month period. However, what you can do is if you've got a vacant period and you're putting in a brand new tenant, the property's been empty and someone else is going in, then you can set the rent at whatever level you like. The problem you're going to have with this rent bill is essentially if people, let's just say that it gets to a bad time. So as we know, if you're trying to rent a property around about November, December, it's really challenging to bring in a new tenant. So you might lowball your rent price to try and get someone in, and then obviously increase it at a certain rate through the tenancy. That's one of the main problems you're going to have is if you're lowballing or providing discounted market rent to start with, on the basis it's a bit of a poor time to rent, and certainly that's where it's going to catch people out.
That's a really good point. Hang on a second there. That's a brilliant point. I'm going to try and share my screen, and let's go back and forth a wee bit on this, Craig, and stay on. If you stay on and we can get a bit of discussion going here. I'm going to bring up the Sal email that gets sent to me, and that just highlights all the points, and I'm going to try and share my screen if that's okay. Host disabled attendees.
I've minimized.
It says host disabled attendees screen sharing. Stephen, do you know how to get that available for me? No? Right.
I'll try that.
Craig, I've got a question for you. Agent to agent. What if CPI goes into a negative, which it has done before?
Yeah, absolutely. Then that criteria is negative plus 1%. So I guess it'll be a negative plus minus 1% on that basis then.
Right. I'm just going to read you out the
that may have worked.
Okay, hang on a second. Right. Okay, here we go. Yes. Share. Can you see that?
Yep.
Right. Okay. So obviously this got put out to a public consultation last year. This is not a new thing that's just come in through COVID-19. This got put out to the public, and obviously they gather everybody's views on the thing. And to be honest with you, I think it got quite strong support. So my feeling is that it will go through. I don't know about you guys, but I think it will. So following public consultation, this is Pauline McNeill, Scottish Labour MSP. Basically has published a members' bill in the Scottish Parliament to place a blanket restriction on mid-tenancy rent increases. You can read all that. But the main points are landlords of PRT, so that's private residential tenancy agreements, which is the lease that everybody uses now, can only increase the rent by CPI plus 1% each year. I actually had to Google CPI because I was like, what the hell is CPI? So it's Consumer Price Index, and that is basically inflation. Plus 1%, and as Chris mentioned there, obviously inflation can go to negative, right? So what does that mean? Tenants who feel their rent is too high can apply to the rent officer for a determination of fair open market rent. They can do this at any time during a tenancy, but no more frequently than 12 monthly. Right, the thing here is, this is not really too much change, because see if a landlord ups the rent at the moment, my understanding is with the PRT, they can actually apply to a rent officer, I think through the first tier tribunal, to get that checked out and possibly adjusted. I think that's already the case. So there's not too much difference there. Where the difference is obviously there's a cap. There'll be a cap there that you can only increase the rent by so much. Landlords are required to provide information on the rent they charge when applying to register or renew their landlord registration. That's a new thing. So obviously, when you go and register with every landlord, if you're a new landlord, you have to register with your local authority, and you get a landlord registration number. On there, it will have your details, address details, or your agent details. They've actually changed that system now, so they've asked you a lot more questions at the registration period now. So it used to be very, very straightforward. Now they go into all sorts of detailed questions about, do you have a gas safety certificate? Do you have an EICR? All the certification that you need. I can't remember all the stuff, but they do ask a lot more. As far as I'm aware, they don't check it. So if you say you've got a gas safety certificate, then they just take your word for it. They don't actually physically ask you to upload the document. It's just
Nick, can I just interject?
yeah.
Five Council do
Okay.
ask for physical evidence. Essentially, what they were going to do in Fife anyway is they were going to actually go out. This is pre-COVID. Is actually do like a sampling audit and actually attend the property. So there's going to be a Fife Council housing officer would randomly pick on a new landlord. Fife Council would come and meet the landlord at the property and do a physical walkthrough. So because of the COVID situation, what they're doing is they're still doing their audit sample, but obviously can't do it physically. So if you're picked in the audit, you must upload your EICR, Legionella, gas safety. That all has to be physically scanned or PDF'd over to them.
Okay, so interesting. So a bit more hassle for the landlord, but you should be doing all this anyway. And if you're a good and proper, fit and proper landlords, then no issues there, right? Moving on to the next bit, last bit, and this is where sort of my thoughts kick in here. So I'll just rant for a couple of minutes, then I'll bring Craig back and get his thoughts. So the bill does not propose introducing any restriction on the amount a landlord increases rent by between tenancies. So in effect, if you take on a tenant and you're charging rent at £500 a month, the tenant leaves in a year's time and you want to up the rent to £700 a month, then you can do that, right? So here's my thinking. Those people who have long-term tenants, families possibly, people that could stay 5+ years, you're going to have to really, be careful. Obviously, you need to charge a fair rent at the start, otherwise you're not going to get your property rented. But if I've got a long-term tenant in a property, I've got tenants in 4 or 5 years, I've never increased the rent, right? Because for me, it means that I don't have to redecorate, I don't have the turnaround expenses, all that, and I'm quite happy to see them in there long term. A lot of my landlord clients like to review the rent each year. That's absolutely fine. But what that's going to make me do, in effect, if they bring this in, is I will be increasing it every year, and I'll be doing it, obviously, in accordance with the CPI plus 1%. So that's going to force me to put up my rents. Definitely will force me. Obviously, I'm against it. I don't think it's a good thing. I think that the housing crisis and the shortage of housing, the shortage of affordable housing shouldn't, that's the government's fault. It's not our fault. Why should we basically bear the brunt of that? But I don't have time for people who say, this is a terrible time to get involved in renting properties. The game's a goner, the game's up. I think you've got to look at it and treat it as a business and look at it as an investment and say, what other investment gives you 12 to 20% return on your initial investment? Landlords are getting hammered. It's just, we need to just accept it. But see all these people that say, oh, we need to lobby for this. We need to go out and protest and stuff like that. Fuck that shit, man. Just get on with it. Like, stop wasting time. Okay, it's a pain in the arse, but just get on and concentrate on making money and stop all this kind of lobbying and all the rest of it. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, that's my rant over. Craig, it would be good to get your opinion.
Yep, very similar to your own opinion. What did happen is when the PRTs came out, there was actually, there is a clause in the PRTs that stipulates about the rent can only be increased on an annual basis. It doesn't refer to CPI, it doesn't refer to any percentages. So because when that came in, people were saying, oh, well, it's now actually been highlighted. Now, essentially, you could have, under the short assured tenancies, as long as they were in a fixed term notice period, you could have gave them the appropriate notice to increase the rents on a short assured tenancy. So what I found is because this clause came in under the PRT and it was, highlighting, people's like, oh, well, it's there because obviously I will just increase the rent. Truth be told, people haven't actioned it. So will people action this one? Because essentially it is already there. The only difference is it's now CPI +1. It's just been capped, but it was uncapped before. So the narrative was still there. And obviously, I mean, you guys will probably be the same. I've got tenants in my own and tenants that I manage. It's been in the property for maybe 10 years plus. Because I've got continuity, yeah, I could maybe get an extra £20, £30 a month. But if they move out, as you said, Nick, you've got a full redecor, you've got carpets, so you're maybe £1,000, and you're thinking, well, that's going to take me maybe 3 or 4 years to get that back. And you lose the continuity of a tenant that looks after the property and pays the rent.
Well, let's break that down then, because when I said that I would be pretty much guaranteed I would be up in the rent each year. When you put it like that, so say take it on a rent of say £600 a month, right? So I looked into kind of like average kind of what's a sort of typical inflation CPI rate plus 1%. So you're probably talking about around about 3%.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
so 3% of 600. So that's not really much, is it? I mean, you're probably talking about
£18.
right. So like you say, is it really worth it? Not really.
It's
But
not worth rocking the boat and losing a good relationship for the sake of £18. And then obviously you're paying probably 40% tax on that. So you come out, it's a tenner a month to lose a tenant.
I think if you've got a decent tenant in anyway, I think most landlords would say they wouldn't be upping the rent by that much anyway. Like, so I don't see how it's really going to affect landlords a huge amount.
Well, it won't. The only effect it'll be is if landlords give discounted rates when it's a challenging time like November or December to get a let.
Yeah.
Just to get someone in. That's where it's going to be an issue. And I can understand that because if someone takes the rent on a premise, it's maybe £500, and then all of a sudden it gets to a popular time like spring and it's went from 500 up to 700, then essentially the tenant's sort of being led into sort of false sense of security, thinking, oh, I've got a good property here for a good rent, and all of a sudden, shit, it's went up to £700.
Well, just talking on that, Craig, current market conditions, and some people were saying, and I was thinking this myself, that there's going to be such an influx of empty properties onto the market, and probably not that many people looking. Well, we need to reduce the rents to try and get them let. Now, I've just put one on literally in the last 2 days. It's a full refurb that I did in Ibrox in Glasgow. It's quite a popular area, but it's a bit scabby, to be honest with you. The close is kind of lying open. There's no secure entry. But inside the flat's immaculate, right? Unfurnished, 1 bedroom. Other comparables, that are kind of lived in. You're probably talking about 425, 450. I put it on at 500. Absolutely snowed under with inquiries, 21 inquiries in 2 days at £500. Now that's over and above, I would say 450 is probably the market level for a small 1-bedroom flat there. And I was thinking this is going to struggle because it's unfurnished as well. I did a Zoom virtual viewing yesterday and I had 4 applications on the table today from decent quality tenants. So again, I guess it depends on location. If you're out in the sticks and you've got something that's maybe sticking, then possibly. But if you're in a decent high demand area and you've got a good quality property, then don't think you'll have to reduce the rent.
I think rents are going to increase. The rent prices are absolutely going to increase.
So why did you say that people might have to take a hit at the start?
No, I was talking about people when we get to you're poor quality times. If you try and let a property in November, December time, try and let
Right.
it
You're
before
not talking
Christmas.
about after COVID. You're talking about
Oh,
just.
no, not at all. Not at all. I
Right.
was just
Okay.
talking generically about the seasons in the letting market.
Got you.
After COVID, rent prices are going up in 100%. That's just a given. People that were maybe going to be first-time buyers, they've now been furloughed, so they'll have their mortgage application reprocessed on their 80% wages. They may have been self-employed, and obviously with the time delay for self-employed getting grants, in order to utilise the deposit they have for a purchase. So the demands are definitely going to be there. The other thing to bear in mind as well, and obviously Chris will know this, the letting market in January is absolutely hot. That is the busiest time because people essentially split for a new year, a new start. So if you get people that are stuck together for 2 weeks at Christmas time, and that is what happens. People split. We're coming out a 3-month lockdown. Your one-bedroom flats are going to be like gold dust because people are.
We were just talking about this beforehand, and already, I mean, we manage 550 in Aberdeen, and we've had 5 leases of other properties from our own properties where people have split up and just come to us and said, I need another property. Okay, well, so one tenant's turned into 2 tenants, 2 properties, and it's kind of organic growth within it. And normally in our office, January the 4th is newly single man day, because it's the first day that we open up for viewings after the new year, and it's the first day that they can get a viewing to get out because they've done something stupid. They can't, they've been kicked out, and it's just the busiest time of the year, and it's already started.
I know. Why do you think I'm sitting outside here? I've been tapped out. I need to take on that 1-bedroom flat in Ibrox myself. Nah, kidding on. Right, no, this is pretty cool. We've pretty much got the whole of Scotland covered here. We've got Chris up in Aberdeen. We've got, where are you, Craig?
In Fife.
You're in Fife. What towns do you cover? Hello?
The whole of the kingdom.
Well, I'm based in Kirkcaldy, but I cover everywhere in Fife. What are you saying?
The whole of the kingdom.
The whole of the kingdom.
Fife.
I do. I've got properties all over.
That's good. So, right, okay. So I think we've pretty much covered that. If anybody's got any questions on the subject of fair rents, any comments, and please fire them in. If anybody's got any landlord, look, we've got 3 letting agents on here that are willing to talk. So if anybody's got any landlord tenant issues, then fire them in as well. I always conscious of talking too much about the kind of like kind of the landlording and the kind of letting agent stuff, because I think a lot of people find it quite boring. People want to know the sexy stuff, don't they? How they can make the 20k on the flips and all the rest of it. So we've always got Stephen there to fall back on.
David tonight.
Where's he?
David's got to talk about his deal, so that'll liven up the conversation for us.
Is David on?
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God! Sorry, man. I didn't even realise. Here's me blabbing on about bloody boring stuff.
It was all asleep first with the regulations first, and then catch us all up.
David, I'm really sorry, man. I totally lost that at the start. Stephen, take over.
David's probably left. He's probably went off. So I'm not listening to this nonsense.
Stephen, take over this chat now.
Let me see. Nick's right. Has anybody got any questions? There's a lot of experience in the room with regards of letting agents. Has anybody got any questions at all for these guys?
Nah, we're too boring.
Oh, Andrew, you had to ask a question.
Andrew, has there been many landlords? I can't even read tonight. Hang on. Has there been many landlords changing with the tax changes? Changing, i.e., getting out of the game? I think there has been. Yeah, I think a lot of people maybe the old school landlords who, they've never experienced all this kind of hammering by the government and all that. I see, people, tired landlords selling up portfolios and stuff like that. If you've only got, the accidental landlords as well, with all the legislation, the tax changes. If you've only got one property and you're in a high rate paying, you got a high rate paying career. Sorry, you're in a high rate tax bracket. You've got a well-paid job. then by the time you put that property through and declare that in your self-assessment, I don't think you're going to be left much because you can't deduct the mortgage interest payments anymore. So I think that'll have an effect, yeah. And now, obviously, this year it's taking full impact, and it was phased in over a period of 3 years, I think. This year it's the full impact, so I guess we'll see for sure how that's going to pan out. Brian, right? Is anyone just on that landlords exiting the market, guys? Any of the letting agents got any views on that? Are landlords getting out? Is it time to give up?
We've had a few, and you're right. It's the kind of older school landlords, the ones who've, maybe not bought within limited companies. They're completely exposed to this. They've got, they're higher rate taxpayers, and they've just kind of felt the brunt of it. I think we've had about five or six properties amongst about 3 landlords be sold. But they've jumped on the portfolio bandwagon and got them shifted with tenants in place, and we've retained them. They've mainly been bought by limited companies as well. That
was a sneaky plug there.
Oh, sorry, it wasn't meant to be. It's just
you getting a commission. No. Chris Woods is a good guy. Portfolio, they sell tenanted property. There you go. So yes, what was I going to say about? This is what I say to people, right? Now's a time as good. Now's a good a time as any to get in, because you can, if you structure it right from the start and limited company and all that, then perfect. But then what I think to myself maybe as well, there's nothing to stop the government changing the rules again. So everybody's going to jump in by limited company, and then, a couple of years down the line, they now bring in all these other taxes. So
I think they've got what they've set out to achieve, which was to make the industry more professional in business and corporate, so to speak, and forcing these issues like Chris just said, people are buying them in limited companies. Even the screen you just shared there from Sal was in your business, your rental business. You never used to get referred to as that. It was always landlord, and now it's getting more referred to as a business.
Yeah.
I think I read somewhere as well, you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong, I'm sure it was something like 2 million landlords in the UK were accidental landlords that had one property. So who out of the 2 million landlords, how many were submitting a self-assessment? So the lost revenue they probably didn't get on lost tax revenue, they're now forcing it to be in limited companies where they're going to be able to get every tax pound, if you like. So I think they're achieving what they wanted to set out and achieve. So I can't see them changing it, but God, you could be wrong.
Brian writes asks a question. Is it, hi Brian, how you doing? Hope you're well. I'm just going to rattle through these because we want to get on to the next section. Brian said, is anyone aware of any letting agents who have had enough and want to move on or out? Well, if you are aware of any, then I've got 50 grand kicking about my bank from the bounce back loan that I can buy a letting agent. So give me a shout.
Chris will take them in Aberdeen, you'll take them in Glasgow, and Craig will take them in Fife.
Aye, that's it. And without further ado, let's change the topic of the conversation tonight. And Stephen, I'll hand over for the second half to you, and you can take it away, sir.
Nice, mate. Thank you. David, I'll unmute you. I can't unmute you. Where's the line to unmute you? How are you doing, David?
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Thanks very much for joining us tonight, mate. We were kind of encouraging a lot of people to share posts on the group and everything, and the one that you shared of your one of your developments was really cracking. So we'd ask you if you could come on and share some numbers and share some the pitfalls. It was a decent project. It wasn't just quite a simple buy to let. It was a conversion of 4, was it?
It was a large Victorian house. It used to be a former manse, and it was actually one of the first projects we did. Well, no, actually, it was maybe about half. Yeah, it was a couple of years into it after we started doing it, and we actually just happened to get this property by chance because we used to have an ad in the papers looking to buy properties, and the people who own this property contacted us, and it's in Dunbartonshire and Alexandria, and so I went down to view it. A large Victorian house, and deteriorating. It was in a bad way. So, but the funny thing about this was when I walked in and walked through, one of the downstairs rooms had a big mirrored ceiling in it, loads of hooks on the walls whips and chains and things, the big bed in the middle of the room. It wasn't afterwards that the woman that owned it was a hooker.
Had the whole house to yourself.
This wasn't going too good for us, so they decided they wanted to sell the house. So we bought the house. We paid, I think it was about £300,000 for that house. We got an architect. He drew up some drawings.
Did you always plan on doing the conversion to split?
Yeah, it was always planned from the outset. Yeah, I spotted this and I knew this could be done.
Right.
And so we paid about £300,000 for that, and it cost about £110,000 to get all the groundworks done, all the internal works done. But we did a lot of work ourselves, because I do a lot of kitchen fitting and bathrooms and things like that, and joinery work. And then we got the properties revalued after the work was completed. And I think the two main properties were coming in at about 180,000, and one was coming in at about 170,000. Now, the other thing that we decided to do, it had a massive garden around it, and we decided, what the heck, we might as well put in a planning permission to see if we can get permission to build 2 houses in the garden. We didn't expect to get the planning permission, but we did, and that was an added bonus. So we've now got this plot of land at the side of the house, which we're looking to build 2 houses on as well. Now, we've had these properties now about 5 or 6 years now, so the probably the value's gone up since we finished that completion, because we decided to keep them.
Oh, you kept them all?
Yeah, we've got tenants in there now.
Brilliant.
So we're probably making about I think it's just under £3,000 a month in rent. You know,
what was the end value? Was it 530?
Yeah.
You managed to pull pretty much all the money back out of that deal, or almost?
We got everything. We were looking at a net profit of about 165k is what we made. Now, the biggest problem that we did have, though, was when we initially. Now, I used to be a soldier, so when I got out there, I retrained. I became a mortgage broker, financial advisor, and I hated it. Did that for a wee while, and I've now been doing property investment, kitchen, bathroom fitting. I'm also a gas engineer now as well, so I've retrained to do that.
Keep busy,
yeah. So, but one of the biggest problems we encountered was trying to find that we had initially bought the property with a Royal Bank of Scotland mortgage, but when we split it up into 3 properties, it was still one charge over 3 properties.
Right.
Now, in order to release the equity from these 3 properties, we had to remortgage them. And the problem was the lenders were saying that we had to own them outright for a minimum of 6 months before we could remortgage them.
And
own
each
them
individual title for 6 months?
Each individually, right. Yeah. So we were in a bit of a conundrum, because if we couldn't raise the cash to own them outright individually, how could we own them for 6 months, first of all? We ended up, eventually, after about a year, we found a lender that was prepared to take on 2 of the properties, because they weren't prepared to take on the full risk of all 3 properties in the block. Then we then just had to find one more lender. So we eventually managed to do that after a year. It was quite hard to begin with, but we did manage to do it, and things have worked out well so far, and we've got all 3 of them tenanted as well.
That's good. That was going to be one of my first questions, was, you know, the pitfalls in the project, but it does seem like the exit finance was the main pitfall.
Yeah.
Any tips on getting around that? I mean, it's something I've not come across, actually. I suppose what would you do differently then to mitigate that? Would you split the titles up front after the purchase? So there was, you know, whatever development was getting done, so you've got that longer period of time to have owned them all for 6 months, essentially?
Well, you know, it wasn't too much of a problem, because we decided from the outset that we were not going to sell them, because we had done our numbers beforehand, right. So we knew that these properties were going to make money, definitely. But we decided we were not going to sell them, and we would just remortgage the equity out that we used for doing the works. But, you know, we had to wait a wee while. It took us about 12 months before we found the mortgages, but we did manage to get that equity. At that time, we were financially okay, so we had extra reserves put aside, you know, so it was okay for us to leave that money sat in there for a year. But it did take us 12 months, and then we got the properties remortgaged and we got the money out. And, you know, from there on in, we just used that money to buy other properties, and it's snowballed.
They've been let for 5 years, did you say?
Yeah, but it's coming up for about 5 or 6 years now. Yeah. And we've never had any voids in these properties. Right. As soon as we get a tenant who leaves, it's gone straight away.
Excellent. And
they're really nice properties.
Guys, I've just put on a link here on the chat. David, can you have a look in your chat box? Because I wanted to link to pictures of the property. I don't know if this is the correct one that I've linked to. Because I think you posted in the group, didn't you? But I think you put a few
Yeah.
up in the group.
No, I can't see them.
No, I've put a link on the chat.
They're on the page. I did. Hang on a second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying to find them myself. Actually, hang on, I found them myself.
It's just so people can see. Obviously, when you see the pictures, you'll appreciate the scale of it. There you go.
That's one there.
Beautiful, beautiful old building. So I'm thinking, just looking at that, it was quite a big. I mean, the budget for the refurb was pretty big. I mean, was there any things you came across, like any absolute nightmare scenarios when you were refurbing the property?
Yeah. Obviously, there was only one source of drainage going into the house, and it was the old Victorian drainage, you know, from when the house was first built. I don't know if you can see it, but this here, the coach house at the side of the property.
Nice.
That used to be that whole building used to be just a kitchen for the main house alone. So we had to put subdividing walls in there and put 2 bedrooms and a sitting room and a kitchen. And that's the kitchen there. It's just like a small galley kitchen, and that's a bathroom.
I'm just looking at these and I'm thinking that is screaming out, holiday let, self-care and cottages to me. Did you ever consider doing that with it?
You know, it's funny. My wife and I were talking about this, and we said that when the main one becomes available, which is a 2-bedroom, the main one, we're going to use that maybe possibly as an Airbnb.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, this is a kitchen for the main one downstairs.
Mm-hmm.
We fitted all these kitchens ourselves.
Nice.
Boilers.
That's cracking. Brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, it was in a bad room.
Yeah.
No
So
heating.
that took a lot of sweat and blood and guts spilt on that one, was that?
That was about 9 months, and yeah, we were pulling our hair out. We had problems. The biggest problems we had was with the ground worker, who was a complete tosser. He would never show up on time. Some days he wouldn't show up at all. We'd be holding up the works and everything. We eventually had to fire him. It delayed the works for about a month before we could find another ground worker, you know. So you always want to vet the guys that you take on, because that's one set of skills that we don't have. This here is the garden at the side of the house, and this is what we've got planning permission for, to put 2 houses on the side.
Nice.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We're in a very fortunate.
So this is Alexandria. This is just down sort of past just at the start of Loch Lomond, right? Balloch area.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
so
right.
if we put that on as an Airbnb for, you know, the Trossachs and Loch Lomond and things like that, you know, we reckon we may get a good response. We're very fortunate because these are all Victorian houses in the street. This house here, this is a listed building, the one on the right that you can see. And the one on the left here is also a listed building. And we're in the middle, and we've not been listed yet. But we keep getting these letters from the Listed Building Society and inviting us along to these things. Yeah, and that's it. So the bottom half here, that's a 2-bedroom here. And that's a 3-bedroom in the upper. And then you've got the coach house at the side, which is a 2-bedroom. Yeah.
Nice.
And then we put a staircase at the side to get up the upper flat there.
Got a question here from Andrew. Do you want to jump in, Andrew? I just noticed in the chat box. You mind taking a few questions, Dave? Is that
no,
right?
not at all. Not
okay.
at all.
Andrew, do you want to jump in?
Sorry, I couldn't find the button there.
Oh, yeah. How you doing?
Yeah, good, thanks. I managed to get my light bulb fixed.
Brilliant. It's perfect. You're looking good.
Yeah, I was just interested that the thought process hadn't crossed your mind at all about splitting title, because normally one of the first thoughts that you have when you have a building like that is to split down the title to make sure you don't, it gives you the option for selling later or just making sure you can get the remortgages through.
Sorry, you broke up there. Could you say that again?
Yeah, I didn't, did the thought process not occur to you at all when you first looked at the property, just to do the split title right away?
No, when we first purchased this, we approached the Royal Bank of Scotland, and we approached a few lenders with a view to letting them know that we were intending to purchase this not as a home to buy and rent out as a whole. But, we had to let them know that we were buying this with the intention of splitting it anyway. So this was a short-term mortgage that they gave us, you know, and it was not on a fixed rate or, you know, it was just on a very standard variable rate. So there was no penalties or whatever, or tie-ins or anything like that. And then it was up to us after the works had been completed to find mortgages that would be able to split it with. Now that's where I would double check first of all, because that was the one thing that did catch us out, is not having a bit of foresight to check that we wouldn't encounter problems trying to find mortgage lenders that would be able or would be willing to take on these properties as soon as the works had completed. And as I say, it took us 9 months to eventually get a lender that would be willing to do this, you know. But in the end, it worked out, so it was fine. But that's probably one of the main mistakes we made, definitely.
And what about the land now? Have you segregated the title for the land?
Yes, that's on a separate title as well. Yeah.
Excellent. So is a plan to build that out in the near future then, David?
The plan is, yeah, definitely, and we are actually looking for a mortgage company, or if maybe some of you guys out there will maybe know of somebody that provides finance for build projects. I've not actually looked into it myself. I know there used to be one based in Livingston, of all places, where I am.
So you should be able to get 100% development funding since you own this land outright and the title's been split. Is that right?
We do own the land outright, yeah. It's probably with planning permission, it's worth about £80,000. But by the time we put on the 2 semi-detached properties on that, it's going to be worth a lot more.
Is that the plan too? Is it 3-bed semi-detached houses?
Yeah, aye.
I was just curious, when you found out there was a prostitute living there previously, did you find anything under the beds or anything like that?
No. She wasn't making any attempt to hide it. It was hanging up on the walls, the whips and the chains and things like that.
All right, okay, so it was all over the place, right?
Yeah, it was everywhere.
Aye. Oh well. Selling point, eh?
You all on property, don't you?
What have we got here? Somebody's Brian Wright's jumped in here. I think this is about new build finance. He's suggested Build Store in Livingston.
That's the one.
Yeah. So
That's
check
the
them out.
I'll take a note of that.
Aye. I remember years ago when I was interested in land, a Build Store. They've been about for a while, because I think they first started as just like a website, and then obviously they're creating finance packages now as well. And they were associated with a website called Plot Finder, I think, as well.
Yeah, so they're big in self builders.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But it's something like, Stephen, you're going to be embarking on a new build. Well, you were hoping to. Obviously, things are a bit stalled, aren't they? But you're going down that route soon, are you not?
Yeah. We raised private investment finance between our joint venture partner and I, so we weren't going to go down the funding route, and it was probably partly because of the fact that I thought they were going to ask for your CV and your experience in new build development, whereas we managed to fund it ourselves for the first one. Then hopefully that would count as our CV going forward to say, well, here's the one we've built previously. We can get development funding a lot easier now, rather than here's all the flips I've done. You know, does that count as new build? Which I didn't think it would have.
Something I'd love to do, to be honest with you. I just feel that I'm just not at that stage yet, but I think it would be very consuming in terms of time as well. I think you would need to be on site a lot. I think it would take a lot. You consume a lot of your time.
Yeah. Anyone else got any questions for David while he's on? It was a really good project, and thanks very much for sharing that, David. Appreciate that.
So what David, just you told us about, just to give a couple of tips to the audience here. You told us about the problems you had at the start. Obviously, one of the major things was, this ground worker holding you up. Yeah. As part of your kind of due diligence process and taking on tradesmen and contractors now, have you got any kind of thing that you do specifically? I mean, do you just try and get personal recommendations, or do you go and visit them on jobs and check out their work? Is there anything you specifically do to try and mitigate getting the crooks and the tradesmen that just don't show up and all the rest of it?
Well, I'm actually a tradesman myself, so I do a lot of the work myself.
All right.
With a couple of guys I've got.
Okay.
You know, we'll do all the joinery work, kitchen and bathroom fitting, flooring, you know, door hanging, you know, we've even got a painter and decorator. I've got an electrician there that I use. I fit boilers myself.
Yeah.
You know, I've got another couple of gas engineers that I use. But I mean, the only other trades guys that we bring in now is floatlight roofers. That's one place I don't like to go, you know, up in roofs.
Yeah.
But we've pretty much got everything in house. I mean, we also offer a service to other landlords, believe it or not. And that's I'm not putting their services, but because we've had other landlords approach us, you know, to do stuff like this for them, which we've done on many occasions.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine, mate. Listen, we appreciate you coming on here. So if anybody, any landlords, investors, I mean, were you basically west of Scotland?
I'm based in Livingston, but we've got properties. I think we've got properties right across the central belt of Scotland. We've got a couple in England, and unfortunately I bought one in Northern Ireland of all places, which is been a nightmare, but that's another story. And as I say, somebody was asking earlier on about, or talking about doing viewings and things like that. We've actually had quite a good week ourselves, and we closed a deal on a property that we're selling, and that was just a video call that we did. We've got a property up in a place called Blackwood, which is near Motherwell. We had that in the market. We had a lady from England phone me, and I showed her around, and she actually put in an offer that day.
So wait a minute, did you have it on an agent on Rightmove? Or
no, we do that in house as well. If anybody's wanting a recommendation, I would recommend it's an online agency called Visum. So you upload your property pictures, and you get all the leads sent direct to your phone or your email, and you contact them yourself. This is for lets and sales.
What's the name of it, mate? I've never heard of that one.
It's called Visum, Visum.
Visum, right? Okay, because I'm aware of you know, these cheap agents, online agents, £99 and stuff like that, doorsteps and stuff like that. Where I think it's probably a similar thing. How much does that cost for you?
It's £89, and
right.
You get various options. But you know, I have all the like. We also closed on 2 let properties this week. I actually just told a new tenant today she was accepted for a property, and the one that I also posted on your website, the one that we had painted the exterior, we've got a new tenant for that as well. So it's been a good week. You know, 1 sold and 2 let this week. But and that's all through Visum. And now what they do is you pay £89. They'll upload that onto Zoopla, Rightmove, and a few other websites, and then you can set it up so that you receive those directly to your email and your phone.
Listen, that's good to know. I think that if the property's done up to a good standard, you know, and you can take some pictures, good pictures there, then I think you won't have a problem, you know, shifting it if it's a decent quality in a decent area. It's the same. Like, people ask me all the time, you know, I'm a letting agent, right? But people say to me, I want to self-manage. I say to them, fine, go on open rent, £29, right? For open rent. You get your advert on Zoopla, Rightmove. You take all the inquiries in from the tenant. Open rent will even reference check your tenant. I don't really care if I'm doing myself out of business here. I've got enough things going on that it doesn't really bother me. I'm out to help self-managing landlords as well. So, you know, that's an option as well for people. Just be careful. I always remind people with the lets, there's obviously changing legislation week in, week out. New stuff's happening. If you're going to do self-managing, then please go and sign up to SAL. It's like £95 for the year or something like that. So Scottish Association of Landlords, and they'll keep you right in all the legislation, and you've got a free advice line as well. And I don't even get a commission or a kickback from SAL, but I think they're a good service.
I mean, this is our core business. This is what we do, and you know, my wife we've got a couple of staff that we employ. We do all the letting in house, and we've got the other arm to the business, which is the maintenance and refurbishment renovation side. You know.
Good stuff. Excellent. Have you got any good projects on the go at the moment then that you're going to share with us?
It's pretty much. Instead, we own the properties that we let, but we are, you know, self-managing, if you like, and prefer to do that. We did initially go and do the rounds with the various a few letting agents. We got stung a couple of times.
Yeah, there's a lot of sharks out there. These letting agents are notorious.
Right. Yeah, this was about 15 years ago. We had a couple of letting agents had done a run with some deposits that we had, but so that kind of put us off.
It's a bit more tighter now. It's got to be said, because you've got to have client money protection. You've got to be registered with the Scottish Government, etc. There was a question here that I was going to go back to. Sorry, this was Sly said, Nick, please help ask this question. So that I presume he doesn't want to come on. Sly says, David, what is the size of the additional land you now have planning permission for? So this was the land that you estimated value at 80,000, which you've got the planning permission for. What sort of size is that?
Oh, I don't know the exact size, but I would say it's probably...
Where's that picture? Do you want to pull up the picture for Sly? I'll give you an idea.
Just going to get it for you. I would say it's probably slightly bigger than, a tennis court.
What are you hoping to have built on, or what are you hoping to get plans for on that site?
Well, we've got planning permission for 2 semi-detached properties. There you go. So that's it there.
Yeah. So it looks quite narrow, isn't it? You get two.
It's wider than you realise. Definitely.
Pair of semis and like a semis in there, right? Cool, right?
It's about the width of 5 or 6 cars.
Ah, right, okay. It's probably just deceiving from the picture.
Yeah.
Cool. I've found just a tip for people as well if you're looking at land. I just find Google Earth and Google Maps now amazing for checking out bits of land. So with the Google Earth, you can go right, and the satellite images are quite detailed now. That you can, and there's actually a measuring tool now on Google Earth which you can use to draw a line, and it'll actually measure out.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a wee tip as well if you're looking at land. And it's free as well. It's amazing. Okay, so we're coming up for the hour mark, guys. Is there anything else that 30 people on the call want to discuss tonight? And is there any other issues, problems you're having? Stephen, what have we got planned for this week, man? We're going to need to line up a podcast. We've just been winging it, because usually we have a proper structure where we've got like everything Trelloed out on the board, but we're just been kind of winging it here and there. So I'm going to need to come up with something, Emma, this week. You came up with the last week's one.
Yeah, I think we should put you under the bus, guys, and give your case study, a buy-to-let case study or something.
Yeah, so right, I'll need to think. We'll record it on.
Got any suggestions while you're on the call? Actually, if anybody's got anything they want covered, or
anybody got any podcast suggestions? Stick them in the chat box.
I think we've got a list of about another 30 to go, but we've not done any work on which. Who to get on or do the meat of the subject. So if anybody's got any suggestions that are kind of topical right now, then I'm sure we'd love to cover it, Nick.
Poor Stephen got a couple of knockbacks last week from potential guests. That's
Amy McDonald ignored me.
So
Shafazul's PR told me to piss off, and who else? Had a fair few knockbacks.
He was trying to get Amy McDonald on the podcast. I mean, what do you expect, man? You're going she's
got a portfolio investment properties that I think they're mainly in Glasgow, about 2.7 million. So she's apparently a phenomenal investor. So I think it'd be quite interesting.
She likes her Ferraris, and she's married to, I think he's an ex-Rangers player as well. So, but that doesn't surprise me that she's not coming on the Scottish Property Podcast with 600 listeners. So.
She'll come on.
Anyway, right, guys. I think that brings us. Look at that, the sun's just beating down here. It's beautiful out here. I better go and see if I'm allowed back into my house now. So, unless there's anything else you want to chat about. We do enjoy chatting to you.
Superb. Neil's had a property that sold at 8k over the home report today. So that's a good result. It's nice to see things moving.
Brilliant. Which Neil was that? Is that Neil Robb?
Yeah.
Neil, tell us about your deal, man.
I thought he was going to come on and defend Northern Ireland there.
Come on, Neil. Tell us about it.
No. This was the one. Remember when we went into lockdown, you said, aye, that wouldn't be going anywhere.
Okay.
And to be honest, I was quite sceptical too. And right up until I got the phone call at 3 o'clock today.
Brilliant.
I was waiting, and then they said, your money's on its way. So
congratulations.
I thought I was a wee bit unsure about home report, whether it was too undervalued, but you take the price you take. And then we got an offer 6k under it, and then I refused it. Went up 4k, refused it, went to closing day, and I went 8k above it. So
Okay, is this a property that you're offloading off your investment, off your portfolio, or?
It was one I inherited a couple of years back, but it's just the wrong location for me.
Right, whereabouts was it again?
That would be over in the Nellen near the Noon.
Ah, right, okay, got you.
So if it was the other side, I would never have sold it in a million years.
Where do you predominantly invest in, or where are your properties mainly?
Jesus, I've got Shotts, I've got Inverclyde, I've got Glasgow, I've got Belfast, I've got Limavady, I've got Banbridge, and I've got...
Okay.
Where have you not got, Neil?
What's that?
I just see the price and buy it. I've not really got a strategy, it's shotgun.
Good, man. Oh, that's good. Listen, Neil, you're actually one of our top posters in the Facebook group. So
I know. I wondered why I was tagged in it, and I never seen that bit because it only showed number 2 in the list, and I never paid any heed.
You were the top, weren't you?
It just goes to show I don't do enough work.
Well, I was going to say, you've got that big a property portfolio. You've got plenty of money coming in, so you've got plenty of time to go on Facebook all day. So we appreciate it.
That's actually a bad thing, because see, years ago, I had to work the last minute. And I think once you get so comfortable and you're not panicking, like when all this lot came down, I know you always think a wee bit of an active head and all the rest of it, but I don't have enough savings there. So if nobody paid for the next 3 or 4 years, I'd be grand.
Right.
The chances everybody not paying. So and I think when you get comfortable, you take your eye off the ball a wee bit. So I was getting all prepped there for post-lockdown. And maybe, 8 months to a year's time, seeing where the market is. Because at the minute, I don't think it's really changed too much.
Yeah,
because
I don't think so either.
There's loads of people think they're going to run and get these bargains, and they're not going to get them until people lose their jobs.
On the subject of non-payers, letting agents, Chris and Craig, if you're still on the line, how are you getting on with non-paying tenants or tenants that can't afford to pay all the rent? I've got about, out of 89, I've got 6. I'm down to 6, and I've managed. There was only one that hadn't paid anything, and I've managed to get him kind of back on the road again, and he's on a payment plan, and it's looking quite good. So, anyone want to chip in on kind of rent arrears and stuff? Craig?
Kind of doing all right. Out of 550, we've got about 15.
That's all right, isn't it?
Five of them are mine that aren't paying.
A huge chunk of them happen to be Stephen Clark's, so we'll just brush over that one.
Doesn't even a joke.
Yeah, I'm just looking with you. I'm just keeping the money to one side just to make you sweat for a bit.
I thought Pfeiffer's were the tight ones as well. But
I mean, the ones you've got a lot of people who, I mean, on the beginning we thought, oh, everyone's just going to use this to really ride roughshod over everything, but people haven't, and that's a testament to them as well. I think the people who've really needed it have come forward. We were very kind of open with all the tenants and worked with them. There's no one saying, look, I'm demanding not to pay rent and to never pay this. The people who are generally, they're a bit kind of like, I'm in this situation, I need a hand, but I'll pay you back, and we'll yes, we've got a payment plan set up, and we'll go from there. I think the big thing that we're waiting for is, we thought, April's going to be fine, May's going to be the problem, and then May was not so much of a problem. I really think it's going to be kind of August, September, October when the furlough scheme ends, which is where we'll see the big problems coming through.
Yeah, great. We'll look forward to that then.
Sorry, there we go. I know.
Well, what I'm going to be doing as part of my strategy is I'm going to be looking at more kind of, housing benefit, if you like, tenants, properties and those sorts of areas, and the kind of universal. I know it's not housing benefit now, universal credit. So areas where that's probably going to be your tenant profile. I'm going to be looking to pick up a few more properties in those locations because obviously. At the moment, the furlough scheme backs people's wages, but in the future, then it's going to be universal credit is going to underpin the private rental sector. So if there are serious problems.
One of the hardest things is someone who's never claimed benefits before, who then starts, coming upon hard times. The main thing that we try and do is say, look, the benefit system's there for you. It can keep the roof over your head. Go and use it. And a lot of people are really, really reluctant to. until you kind of pinpoint it out. You've paid into this. You deserve it at this time. That's what it's there for. And you kind of shove them onto it, and then that's when everything can, you know.
Yeah, I've experienced that firsthand. One of my guys, like I'm really personal with my tenants. You know, I try and help them out as much as possible. One of my guys is a bathroom fitter, self-employed. You know, I just know that he would be eligible for either, probably not a self-employed scheme, but he'd be eligible for universal credit, right? But he's got too much pride. The guy's worked all his life. He's always made a wage, you know, himself. He's a hard-working guy. He doesn't want to take that kind of. I can understand it, you know, and he keeps saying, "Oh yeah, Nick, I mean to sort that universal credit," and I just know he's never going to do it because it's a pride thing. Do you know what I mean? So he's one of the ones that's kind of started paying again, and I think he will come good because once he starts with bathrooms again, you know, he'll be earning good money. So it's just a case of hopefully.
I know up to Aberdeen. I've got 100 bathrooms that need sort.
Yeah, totally, man.
Nick,
up.
I've got a few properties you can live in as well. You know?
We'll strike a deal, right?
Nick, can I just jump in on the universal credit thing, please?
Yes.
So, as you may or may not be aware, it used to be if you had a tenant that was on universal credit, trying to liaise and communicate with universal credit was a nightmare. And you guys had a great guest on podcast 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Oh yeah, Bill Irvin.
So that was fantastic. So obviously, what used to happen, or what does happen, is the money goes direct to the tenant fundamentally to start with, and then the old system was it was you C47, and you had to make a claim, and this thing just took weeks upon weeks upon weeks to get any type of communication. And the new system that they've brought in is much better, and you probably will get communication within 7 to 14 days. So if you do have a tenant who is on universal credit and they're maybe not forthcoming to get direct payment to landlord/letting agent, go on the link for the new one, and you will get communication very quickly, which will alleviate any cash flow problems, definitely.
Brilliant. Thanks for sharing that, Craig. Gillian Green's jumped in here. Good evening, Gillian. Thanks for joining us. Are you free to speak here, or are you wanting to?
Yeah,
okay?
Kids are sleeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was just adding just to the notes there, Craig, what you were just talking about, and Chris. I've just had that situation. Basically, I had a tenant who had a good job, but due to COVID, actually, she was going into her new job on the day of lockdown, and that didn't happen. So big kind of scare for her because she'd never had to deal with universal credit, and actually I luckily got in contact with a universal credit expert at Link to Homes for Good, and she's basically been invaluable to me. She's helping right now the tenant go through her claim because she thinks that she's maybe not claimed for everything she should be able to, but also I filled in the UC47 form, and literally within, I think it was 2 or 3 days, I got a call from Universal Credit to tell me that everything is approved. They were just checking my details, and basically I'm getting the Universal Credit, the housing element paid directly to me from this month. Bit of a backlog for the tenants still, but I think it's more manageable for them, and I think a lot of people just don't know what to do.
Yeah, absolutely agree on that. And obviously with the job centres being shut as well, which is the Department of Work and Pensions now to deal with it all. It's not the council. Job centres shut and people need to do it all online, then they get a call. And I had good experience as well with the Universal Credit, to be honest with you. And, you know, I think they've done a fantastic job. The bottom line is, you know, hear a lot of good stories about landlords trying to help their tenants. And at the end of the day, it's in our interest to help tenants, because if we don't help them, then we don't get paid. So basically we need to try and help them as much as possible. And I think on that note, then I think we'll wrap up this call, guys. I just want to say thank you very much for joining us tonight. Listen to the Scottish Property Podcast. We're on every week on Friday across all podcast platforms. Do you know, if you're in your kitchen, you're cooking your dinner, and you've got an Alexa there, if you just call out Alexa, play the latest episode of the Scottish Property Podcast, we'll pop on your Alexa and you can listen to us as well. Hopefully we're providing good content. Stephen, you got anything else to add?
Yeah, just if you haven't left a review, we'd really, really appreciate anyone leaving a review. It helps us get a little bit of traction on, I think, Apple, iTunes like it, puts up the rankings a little bit and gets us more out there, isn't it?
Thanks.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, guys. Take
Good
care.
to
We'll
be-
see you next week.
Thanks to David for joining us tonight as well. And
Oh,
Craig
a
and
big
Chris as
sorry,
well.
guys. Big thank you to David. Big thank you to Craig. And sorry, Chris as
Chris as
well.
well.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thanks, David.
Hi, guys.
Cheers, Chris.
It would help if I could try and leave. But there we go.
I'm still on the Facebook Live here. Hang on a wee second.
You've been live the whole time?
Yeah, I just left it running now. I just left it running because I thought, well, people jump into the it'll pop up on their screens when they're browsing, and then they can go in, they can see the link, and then they can jump on. But I don't think they did. They probably just stayed watching on the Facebook. That was good.
Yeah, it was like.
You still got a couple on the line here. Ross Hall and Ollie's.
It's not letting me remove them. Block me from removing them. I don't know why it's not letting me do that.
Been bugged.
They've probably fell asleep listening to the call.
Calling Ollie and Ross, please remove yourself from the call because myself and Stephen want to have a bitch about all the people that were on tonight.
Or plan our podcast for this week. I don't know why it's not remove them.
Do you want to just end the call and we'll go on? What do you call it? WhatsApp or something?
Can we end the call and jump back on it?
Probably.
Try it.
Okay.